All right, let's take a deep dive into some Champions League football. Arsenal, big win, 3-0 against Dinamo Zagreb. We're going beyond just the score here. We've got post-game analysis and some player interviews. And, well, I guess the big question on everyone's mind is this a turning point for Arsenal? Can they really make a serious run in the Champions League this year?
Definitely a statement win, that's for sure. The scoreline speaks for itself, but the way they controlled the game, start to finish, really impressive. Could be a big momentum shift.
And speaking of starting strong, how about Declan Rice, eh? 2 minutes in, first ever Champions League goal. Think this is going to unlock something offensively for him?
It could, well, yeah, boost that confidence, I'd say. We know he's there, primarily for his defensive abilities, right? But Arteta, he's been pushing him to get forward more, So an early goal like that, it's got to give him the freedom to take a few more risks in the attack.
It's funny you mentioned that because in his post-game interview, Rice actually seemed kind of frustrated. I mean, he scored, but he also missed a golden opportunity later in the match. And he even talked about how he was disappointed he didn't get a second goal.
Yeah, well, I think that just shows you the ambition there, right?
Yeah.
And the high standards he sets for himself. He's not settling for just being, a solid defensive midfielder. He wants to make an impact on both ends of the pitch. And that's got to be music to Arteta's ears.
For sure. And it wasn't just Rice making things happen offensively. Kai Havertz found the back of the net, too. That goal alone matches his total from all of last season. Maybe those critics who were questioning his transfer fee will finally pipe down a bit.
Well, it was a beautiful header, to be fair to him. Great cross from Martinelli, too. And actually, that kind of goes back to what we were saying about Arteta wanting his midfielders to get more involved in the attack, isn't it? Looks like it's starting to pay off.
Yeah. Martinelli, he was a real handful all night long. 2 assists and, oh man, just a constant threat down that left flank. There were people saying he should have been benched, after a few quiet performances recently, but Arteta stuck with him.
And that's what I love about Arteta. He believes in his players. He sees that potential in Martinelli, and he knows even the best players, they need time to find their form. I think this performance will silence some of those doubters, though, for sure.
No doubt. And while we're talking about how dangerous the attack was looking, we can't forget about the other end of the pitch. Another clean sheet for Arsenal. That's their 4th in the Champions League this season. They're really becoming a tough team to break down.
Yeah, and, you can't win championships without a rock-solid defense. That's just a fact. Arsenal are showing they have the discipline and the organization to shut down opponents. It's impressive.
Especially considering they were missing some key defenders in this match, right? Is this a sign of the depth in the squad, or is this more about Arteta's system?
Well, it's a little bit of both, I'd say. Arteta's really instilled this defensive mindset throughout the entire squad. So even when players are missing, everyone knows their role, their responsibility. But it also shows you that their backup players, their quality, they haven't missed a beat even with some key players out.
All right, so this big win comes after kind of a tough January for Arsenal, right? They were knocked out of the FA Cup, and they've got a tricky League Cup tie against Newcastle coming up. Do you think this dominant performance, can it be the springboard they need to get that momentum back across all competitions?
I think it has to be. This was a much-needed confidence boost, especially the way they controlled the game. It's a reminder to everyone, including themselves, of just how good they can be.
And, while we're talking about momentum, can't forget about Martinodegaard, right? Gets a goal in this match, his first from open play since April. There were some people starting to question his form, so this has got to feel pretty good for him.
Huge for his confidence, I'd imagine. And for the team as well, right? Yeah. He's the captain. He's the creative spark for this Arsenal side. When he's at his best, oh, man, they are a different team. So, yeah, this goal, hopefully it's just what he needed to get that confidence back,
It does make you think, though, right? Is this Arsenal squad, are they deep enough to compete on all these different fronts? They've got injuries to key players, Gabriel Jesus, Bukayo Saka. Is there enough firepower to, keep this level of performance going?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? Everyone wants to know. January transfer window is still open, of course, and there's always rumors flying around, about potential signings. And actually, Odegaard was asked about this directly in his post-game interview.
Oh, interesting. So what did he say? Was he putting pressure on the club to bring in some reinforcements, or did he seem to think that that they're good with the squad they've got?
He was pretty diplomatic about it, actually. Said he has confidence in the players they have now, emphasize the quality in the squad. Kind of sounded like he was saying if they can stay healthy, they've got enough to compete, but then he didn't rule out new signings completely either. So
reading between the lines, it sounds like they're not chasing any big signings at the moment, but they're not closing the door completely either. Probably just going to see how the next couple of weeks play out.
Yeah, I think so. It's a smart approach, They believe in the players they have, but they also know how tough it's going to get. So I think they'll just assess the situation, make the best decision for the team, think about those long-term goals.
Well, and speaking of long-term goals, let's get back to the Champions League. Based on everything we've seen so far, how are you feeling about Arsenal's chances of making a deep run in this tournament? Are you feeling optimistic?
I am, actually. Yeah. I am. They've shown they're resilient, they're strong defensively, and their attack, well, it's definitely becoming more of a threat. Of course, the competition's only going to get tougher as you go.
Yeah.
But I think they've got a solid foundation.
Or so, let's say they want to go all the way. What are some of the, the pitfalls, the things they really need to watch out for?
Complacency. That's the big one, right? They can't start underestimating any opponent. Focus and discipline, especially in those big knockout games, those are going to be crucial.
Yeah, their mental game, it's got to be just as strong as their skills on the pitch, especially when the pressure's on.
Oh, absolutely. And we can't forget about squad depth, right? They want to win that trophy. They're going to need every player to step up and make contributions.
For sure. I mean, you look at that win against Dinamo Zagreb, it was a statement. They showed they can control a game, on both ends of the pitch.
Yeah, those clean sheets. That's what really impresses me. Really organized, disciplined at the back. That's the kind of foundation you need if you want to be a top team.
Definitely. Arsenal's journey in the Champions League, it's far from over, obviously. They've got a lot of tough matches ahead of them, but they've got momentum now. They seem to be finding their rhythm.
It's going to be fun to watch. It'll be an exciting finish to the season, that's for sure. Still in the running for a couple of trophies.
And, each win, it just builds that belief, right? Builds their confidence. It's a young team, but they're learning. They're maturing.
And what's interesting to me? They don't seem to shy away from the pressure. It's like they're embracing it. That's a sign of a team that's really growing, believing in what they can do.
So, all right, let's look back at this deep dive into Arsenal's Champions League journey. What are some of the key takeaways you want our listeners to walk away with today? So, all right, let's look back at this deep dive into Arsenal's Champions League journey. What are some of the key takeaways you want our listeners to walk away with today?
I think, the biggest takeaway for me is Arsenal. They're a real contender in this Champions League. I mean, they've shown they can play with the best teams in Europe, and that win against Dinamo Zagreb, that was a statement.
You were talking about how strong they are defensively earlier. Is that what impressed you the most?
It's definitely up there. I mean, 4 clean sheets in the Champions League so far. That's not easy to do. They're so organized at the back, so disciplined.
Their attack is starting to click too, right? He seems to be finding that offensive rhythm. Havertz is scoring. Odegaard is back to, being the maestro, pulling all the strings.
Exactly. And don't forget about Martinelli. He was electric in that match against Dinamo Zagreb. So yeah, they've got a lot of different threats going forward, which makes them, they're dangerous.
So let's say they want to keep this going, keep this momentum. What do they need to focus on?
Consistency. Got to be consistent. They've had some great results, but also some disappointing ones. They got to find a way to bring that same intensity, that same focus every single week.
What about squad depth? Think they can handle it? Competing in all these different competitions with the players they have.
That's the million-dollar question, right? They've already had some injuries, so maybe we'll see them. Maybe they'll dip into the transfer market before it closes. But even with some new players, it's going to take everyone contributing if they want to achieve everything they're aiming for.
All right, so to leave our listeners with something to think about, something to ponder, do you think Arsenal can go all the way in the Champions League? Can they lift that trophy?
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
I really do. They have the talent, the manager, the tactics, and that belief is growing. You can see it. But this is the Champions League. It's ruthless. They're going to need to be at their absolute best. And, well, a little bit of luck never hurts either.
Well, one thing's for sure, it's going to be a fun ride for those Arsenal fans. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Arsenal's Champions League journey. We'll be back soon to explore more of the sporting world.